covering water here pretty quick. Looking for some spring crappies. I got Tom Van Loon with me here today on Uncut Angling. We're in a bay on the north end of the lake here. Maybe not the north end of the whole lake, but the north end of this section of the lake. And that's typically what's gonna warm up the fastest. You know, it's got south exposure, soft mud bottom.
Once that water temperature hits about 60 degrees, that's when they start hitting the spawn till, you know, probably maybe 65, 68 degrees.
Yeah.
Anything before that, and you know, 50, 55, they're starting to move, they're starting to stage, getting ready, and then waiting for some of those, you know, nice warm days. But I mean, you're always kind of working with that. And
working with what? Like
yeah,
this?
there you go, just like that.
Come here, buddy. Oh, yes. Look at how dark this one is, Tom.
Hey, you know why he's in the shallows.
He's doing his thing. He's got that jig right in the lip of his mouth there. This is a Slab Me Silly marabou jig. And you can see the cool thing about it is it's got this big sickle hook. Just give you a quick shot of that sickle hook, which has a huge gap on it compared to a normal jig of this size. And it's great for hookups on these fish, great for hookups on any fish. He's in great shape. I should probably switch over to a float because Tom's got a float going, which is a way better presentation for really dialing in. I'm using this marabou jig and I'm just swimming it. And I may switch to a float yet. We'll see if Tom can prove that that is indeed the better presentation like it should be.
What kind of the good tip that you've got is the fact that you're kind of bouncing it back, and usually you're not going to wind up as getting halfway up on the water column. So you may be coming 6, 8 inches off, and I'm trying to replicate that with the float, maybe only keeping it about that 6, 8 inches up.
That was kind of my thought too, is that maybe you are working just a little bit too high in the water column, which typically for crappie fishing, crappies feed up, they're looking up. You can't really get too high, but you got to cater to what's going on with the bite. And these fish are in probably spawn mode with how warm the water is, and they're skittering along the bottom, and they're not necessarily in a crazy active feeding mode like they would have been maybe even a week ago.
It's all about the little details. You can never go wrong with chartreuse, pink or white, and even a combination of any of those. And that seems to always be the base colors, and you can kind of go from there and, you know, maybe dial it down a bit if you can kind of go with those bases. And that's what makes a difference a lot of times is, you know, start with the base, don't try to overcomplicate it. I mean, like right now, the one I've got on here, I've got, you know, kind of the white head and a bit of the, you know, sparkly chenille and a little bit of a green tail, a little chartreuse tail on there. So, I mean, it kind of hits all the right, colors that, you know, they'll typically want.
But you are not hitting any fish.
But I'm not hitting any fish. So it's like, okay, what part of this presentation don't they like? Maybe it's me. You know, that could be it. Oh, look at that, bobber down.
Beautiful. All that talk about the fish not liking you. It's a pretty dark one.
Yeah. You know, just took that thing in his mouth again. But you know what, we're talking about just kind of, you know, looking at the presentation.
And now that it's set where you want, you're probably gonna get more action before long, eh? Thomas?
You got it once, it's a matter of duplicating it. We'll see if that holds true on the next cast. How deep are we here?
2.5 feet.
Okay. Oh, there he goes, bobber, down.
Beautiful.
Ooh, there we go.
There we go, isn't it big?
Ah, there we go, it's a fish.
Not monster. Hey, you're an old man. Can I land this for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just don't move my bobber.
Oh, and he's gone.
Nice release.
Sorry, buddy. You must have hooked him light. You got the last two.
Yeah.
I'm gonna switch to a float now that we're dialing this in a little closer. We fished right through this section the first time with just one bite, and now that we're picking it apart, we're getting more fish. So with how inactive they are, I want to be right near the bottom and get it in their face. Oh, Tom, look at this. See my bobber?
Yeah, there it goes.
And it's down. I came right up beside you for that one, Tom. Hope you don't mind. Hope this wasn't your fish. Just gonna sling him right in here. That's a nice jet black one. See how I did a lot better job landing my own fish than I did yours?
Yeah, I noticed that.
He didn't get off.
No. Make sure you give yourself a good tip.
Nice crappie. That was first cast with the float, so I'm getting dialed in just like Tom here. That's why when you get on to fish in a situation like this, you want to pick through them because there's so many different factors as to whether you're getting bites or not. Like Tom says, there's fish coming in, constantly cycling in, spawning, doing their routes in and out of here, but there's also activity changing with the weather, activity changing with the time of day.
You know what? There's so much we don't know.
Yeah. Especially you.
Especially me. Who's that one on me?
So we're talking about clones. This one's not a clone. This one is much bigger, much more spunky. Uncut Angling is proudly partnered with Alumacraft Fishing Boats, Humminbird Electronics, Minn Kota Trolling Motors, Shimano Reels, G Loomis Rods, Jackal Lures, Plano Tackle Storage, Frayville Trusted Gear, and Power Pro Line.
Oh, look, there he goes. Bobber down. I mean, there again, as you see some of the really nice coloration on these spring crappies, and you know, you find out they kind of take that bobber so interesting, and I think that we'll probably talk a little bit about some of the bobber setups that we have, and it'll wind up as giving you, some better tips
for really dialing in bobber selection.
Yeah, dialing in bobber selection. Yeah, I think that's one of the things there. A lot of people, wind up as using the wrong type of bobbers.
Mm-hmm. It seems like it's using a bobber, right? But there's so much more to it than just using a bobber, right? And here's another one. All clones basically so far. And they're all pretty much, I don't know what that is, 11, 12 inches, something like that?
Yeah, 12 inches.
Pretty fish, but there's definitely gonna be some bigger fish that we haven't keyed in on yet. I'll show you what Tom's talking about with slip floats here. It's important to have the size of float really dialed in, and especially how it's situated in the water. You can see this float, it's got some different colors on it here, and we want most of the float to be sitting under the water for stability and just how it's tracking while you're fishing. That being said, you don't want just a little sliver sticking out, because then it's going to be going under the water if it waves or something. So right around that black mark is usually where you want to have the water. And I've got a pack of split shots in my pocket here, and if I want, I can use a little split shot, really key that bobber in to the exact floating depth that we wanted at, right, Tom, for ultimate sensitivity?
Yeah, and I think the thing that was interesting, we were looking at some other ones earlier, and if you take this one here, now we're using about a 16th ounce jig, 16th ounce. This one would be probably pretty good for a 1/32.
Absolutely.
Because what happens is 16th would pull it down just a little bit. You get any type of waves, and I mean, if it's sitting right here, I mean, you can't really see that movement too much, even though it kind of makes it almost neutrally buoyant, but it's a little tougher to see, especially if you cast it out of distance.
You lose sight of it, you don't have indication. Tom, look at this. You got a crappie that just bit your jig. The biggest one of the day while you're talking. Oh my goodness. There's a horse right there. Tom's going into some demonstration here and his rod's being pulled. He's got that jig right in the tip of his mouth. Okay.
Hey, I'm surprised you didn't lose that one on me.
So we're talking about clones. This one's not a clone. This one is much bigger, much more spunky. I'm gonna drop him right in right now. That's hilarious.
That's awesome.
Get him right back in.
Hey, Uncut Angling, man.
Almost pulled it out.
Almost, there you go.
But Tom's just showing how he's got a few different floats here, and the system for putting these floats on your line with these little black rubber sleeves. And these sleeves go right onto your line. You put one on each end. It's a little hollow sleeve. And that way you can peg the float, peg it in place there, and now what I can do is I can easily just switch out the float to a different size float. If you put on a bigger jig, if it's windier, if you're doing something a little bit different. And it seems to be working so far, even while we're talking, eh, Tom?
Yeah, sure is. After a while, if you don't get bit for, I don't know, what would you say, half an hour, 45 minutes?
Yeah, then it's definitely time to move on. I don't think I'd last that long, but
no.
Like you say, there's always new fish moving in, so you can really camp out on these spots that you get bites at. And look, it took us probably 15 minutes to work half a mile of shoreline, and now we've been sitting here for an hour hammering fish.
So what does that mean?
It means that it pays to cover water, get on some fish, and then stay there. Don't just keep blazing along.
Absolutely.
Did you already say all that? Did I just reiterate what you said?
Yeah, something like that.
Here we go. I'm down and I'm on. Jet black, Tom. Jet black.
Well, there's a beauty. That's another good eater, and there we go. I got one there too.
Doubled up.
Oh yeah.
We're both using rods that are a little bit longer than you typically see for panfish. Mine's 6.5. Is yours 7 foot, Tom?
7 foot, yeah.
7 foot. fast action. It just gives you so much more control when you're fishing with these bobbers. You can get that one back in too. For casting, for mending your float as you're working it out there, with the longer rod, it's just way easier to be doing that. And you want a fast action so that your rod's not all soft when you're twitching your float and stuff. You want to go straight into a hook set, so you want all that power immediately. Ooh. Still fish here. Even though we're moving in circles here, we're mucking up the gears, so to speak, there's still fish here. And one reason for that is I've got my Minn Kota jacked right up here. This is a 60-inch shaft on here for big water, big waves. Right now I've got it jacked up to keep that prop up way high, and that's helping me to stir up as little mud as possible, which is important when we're going around in circles here catching these fish, because we don't want to make any more disturbance than we have to. And you can tell it looks funny, like it's not supposed to be up that high, but it pays off when you're fishing in 2 or 3 feet of water.
Yeah, because otherwise you'd be basically as furrowing the field, getting ready to plant. And it is springtime, it's time to plant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.